Guys, Rex here. We're going to cover this breaking news that happened just last night. A train derailed in North Dakota with hazardous chemicals is the news. So let's talk about this a little bit more. Where is it at, first off, okay? Here's North Dakota. Down here is a little town called Wyndmere. Now, it's not near any population centers, which is good, right? Fargo's up here. That's quite a ways away. That is like a decent drive away from what we're looking at. So here's the little tiny town of Wyndmere. And of course, we want to be careful anytime you hear about a train derailment, right? But they said it happened about 1.5 miles southeast of town, which brings you to the railroad tracks right here. Here's the railroad tracks. So that'd be right in this vicinity here, okay? So as we can see, this is a photo taken during the summertime. Right now it's winter. The ground is still absolutely frozen. We've had record snowfall. There's a lot of moisture in the ground. This is not a risk right now to permeate and go into the ground. It's going to go across it's just going to flow downhill. And this is very, very flat country. So there is, if the train derailed in the vicinity of this slough here, you can see a little bit of a ditch, okay? This is going to be very easy to contain in the natural drainage, being that even the water is still frozen up here. So the ice is like solid. I mean, this creek is probably frozen darn near to the bottom of the creek still. You might have a little bit of melt off happening, but the train, I guess, was 70 cars. 30 of them derailed. Some of them are leaking petroleum, okay? Petroleum for use in asphalt into the ground. So the news headlines are hazardous material. However, the actual material is petroleum for asphalt, which on the scale of getting worried about, very low comparatively speaking. Unless you are swimming in the petroleum and getting it stuck to you, it's not really hazardous. You can wade through it, you can walk through it. There might be a tiny amount of VOCs, depending on exactly what kind of petroleum this is, okay? But it's not going to be extremely terrible hazardous like some of the recent news we've been seeing, okay? I've done a lot of work with petroleum spills in the past from an angle of supervising kind of how to deal with it and doing environmental write-ups on the effects. So this is actually kind of in my lane. I did that for about 5 years, okay? So it's not the first time I would have seen one. I have not traveled here to see it. But just by looking at a map, we can see that if the train derailed anywhere in this area, the natural drainage is right here. What they're going to do is they're going to get, if any of it, and probably not, unless it happened right over maybe this crossing here where it crosses the low spot, unless it happened right there, it's probably not even touching this drainage yet. And if it is, it's frozen, okay? It's going to be extremely easy to spot where the oil, where the petroleum is flowing in the snow. I've done this lots of times, dozens and maybe hundreds of times, okay? Very easy to spot exactly where it is in the snow. It's not going to soak into the ground, really, not right now. They're going to be able to very quickly and efficiently head this off. They're going to probably put out booms if it is flowing. Most likely, what happens typically in flat country where it's cold, if you have a large oil spill, which I've seen very large ones, I've seen some stuff that was on the news, right? I've seen very, very large oil spills. In cold country, it depends on exactly what, what kind of oil it is or what kind of petroleum. But a lot of that stuff is really going to slow down. It's not like highly viscous, right? It's not going to just flow real easy. Some stuff actually will freeze hard as a rock, and you literally you pick up the spill with your hands, throw it in the back of a pickup, and drive it to wherever you need to take it, okay? That's how it goes in some cases. Now, this might be liquid at this temperature. It's pretty cold today. What is the temperature? 13 degrees Fahrenheit, okay? So it's 13 degrees Fahrenheit right now at the time I'm doing this, and it is midday, which means that it was a lot colder at night when this happened. I'm guessing this is immediately in the vicinity of the train tracks, okay? And they're going to have a pretty simple and easy cleanup with the snow being as deep as it is. They're probably not even going to have to really do a lot of digging. I mean, it's possible. And they do a very, very good job of cleanups, at least in this state. They do. There's a lot of accountability and pressure in North Dakota for companies to do a good job in their cleanup, and they do not get to walk away from it until it is clean. I can verify that that's true because I used to do that. I would make sure that it was clean, okay? So that's kind of my initial reaction. There's like zero panic here. This is way far out of my range. I mean, it would be neat to drive there and get a picture for you, but I already kind of can tell you what's going on. If the oil cars are leaking in this vicinity, your nearest actual drainage here is going to be right here, Wild Rice River, okay, which is frozen. 100% frozen, solid as a rock. It's not just going to go flowing through the water. It's not going to get into your wells. It's not going to pollute your water. And if it did, petroleum in general, now I don't know exactly what kind of petroleum for asphalt they're using here, but like if there's an oil spill, just a petroleum spill, the stuff that they use in the asphalt that I'm familiar with, a lot of times they do in situ remediation, which means they just leave it. And the landowner will request, just leave it. Why would the landowner request to leave it alone? Because by digging it up, they're going to mess up the land worse than leaving it there. And it's funny because when you do your inspection later to go see how it's doing like a year later, that area is absolutely lush because petroleum is like the ultimate fertilizer. That's what a lot of fertilizer are based on, right? And in its most natural forms, it's carbon and hydrogen, right? And so if you spill, now don't do this, don't pollute, right? But if you were to spill a bunch of crude oil or petroleum for asphalt on the ground, the plants go nuts. They like it. They eat that stuff up. It's not really a hazardous deal like what you saw in Ohio, okay? Now, maybe they have some kind of new recipe that's extremely dangerous, hazardous stuff. And I know the news likes to make it look scary. However, I can pretty much tell you that there's not a whole lot probably to worry about. And I am a stickler when it comes to my environmental safety here on my property. Like, I'm a stickler. And if stuff is going around, like in the area, I'm one of those guys that'll picket stuff if I don't, like when they were trying to do some projects with uranium in the western part of the state before I was doing that for a job. I'm not an environmentalist really, but I like stuff not to poison me. So if there was any kind of threat, I would absolutely be telling you about it. I'm telling you, I would absolutely tell you about it, okay? Because there's a lot of cases where pollution happens and nobody even cares. So the funny thing, the news does not tell you all the stuff that's going on right now today that you are literally being polluted with in a horrific fashion that's not even on your radar as you're worried about some natural, like you shouldn't worry about the petroleum laying on the ground over here more than you should worry about the stuff you should actually worry about. Many of those things I could tell you to worry about are forbidden to talk about here, okay? And I'm not just talking electromagnetic pollution. I'm talking about chemical pollution, stuff. What are you showering in? What are you drinking in your water? You want to worry about pollution? Worry about that. What kind of carpet did you just have installed? You know how many VOCs in off-gassing happens from carpets? Or from varnishing your cabinets? Or from painting the garage? Or your bed? Oh, I got a new Tempur-Pedic pillow. That stuff is off-gassing stuff that is horrific for you, comparatively speaking, than a little bit of petroleum maybe laying out in the field in the frozen deal that is going to be a very simple cleanup. So that's just to give you perspective. I'm not trying to preach at you, but here's the location. If it was summertime, if this was some incredibly horrific, terrible stuff like radiation, like we just saw in Minnesota that they kind of were quiet about, right? If it was something to worry about, where would it go? Go into the drainage here. This is the Red River drainage basin. So it's going to go this way towards the Red River. It's going to work its way down until it hits the Red River. Then it's going to go north towards Canada. Then if you're in Wahpeton, You might see some radiation there. You probably wouldn't want to swim if there was some hazardous chemical that made it to the river. Plus, you got to understand the concept of dilution is the solution to pollution. And that's basically how they manage any pollutants, is it's diluted when they use it, right? So all that toxic stuff that's concentrated into the spots that it is a point source of pollution eventually is going to get spread all over in whatever industry it's in and sprayed onto your furniture so that you can bring that nasty stuff into your home. So in perspective, I'm just trying to say, I wish the news maybe had people that were a little smarter on actual environmental issues, because there's plenty of stuff that is dangerous that should not be in the environment that is, because it's part of how we live in the modern era. And I mean, if they wanted to go to town on that, I'm telling you, they would not have their sponsors anymore. Now, my sponsors are you, my beloved patrons, okay, for those of you supporting it, the channel. My sponsors are buying truth, so I get to say the truth, and I do not care what company is offended. I'm not in bed with the oil companies. They do certain things that I'm like, little risky, but not near as bad as the stuff that you think is just great. All the trendies and environmentalists think the stuff is just great that is horrifically poisoning them. Not to mention the stuff they take on purpose that poisons them. So, I'm all about environmentalism if it's smart and balanced. Actually worried about the stuff that's actually going to kill you. It's one of those straining of gnats. Like, I'm going to filter out all the gnats so I don't get, it's like putting screens on your house, right? You put all these screens on your house. I don't want little gnats getting in here. I have perfectly good screens, Rex. Meanwhile, the front door's open and a camel walks in here and starts knocking stuff off the table. We had a huge rant on gnats versus camels on other topics on the Patreon channel just recently. We do like 5 posts sometimes a day over there. It's ridiculous. But I appreciate the patrons for funding this deal and for allowing me to just talk the truth, because then I can come on YouTube once in a while I'll come on YouTube. I'm usually on Patreon like 90% of the time. But then I can come over here and be like, just tell you the actual truth, right? Don't worry about the train derailment in North Dakota. Even if you live right here, man, like even if you live in this town, it's going to go downhill, okay? So it's going to go away from your town, right? Unless I'm misreading exactly where it happened. But I'm guessing, downhill to me looks like following the low spot here, right? Even if you had a farm, like right next to it where it happened, I've worked on a number of horrific oil spills and petroleum industry related spills, salt water and stuff that was bad, immediately adjacent to farms. And so I'm telling you that on a scale of 1 to 100, 100 being light your hair on fire and 0 being it's not going to affect you, even if you live right in the vicinity, it's going to be a very low number. Like, I don't know, it's going to be low, like way lower than the stuff you probably drug into your house today on purpose. You know what I mean? So that's my full spiel. Come check it out. I'll leave links below. If you guys enjoy hearing the truth, then you can come hang out on Patreon and support us. If if you can't handle the truth, because some people just can't handle it, then don't sign up. If you don't have thick skin, then don't sign up. Because I do not care about your feelings. I care about your wellness. And the truth is a good deal. Hey, little buddy. All right. Hopefully that was entertaining. I love you guys. May the force be with you. Don't stress about this particular one. The deal in Ohio, pretty bad for the guys that live anywhere near there. This deal, nothing. Nothing to worry about as far as I can tell. Okay, Rex out.
If you're looking for rugged precision in your long-range optics, check out Arc and Optics. They still have a deal going on the SH4 Generation 2 scopes. I use these on everything from 50s down to 22 rifles. They're excellent scopes, very, very rugged, very precise. They have all the features. Check them out. I will leave a link below. Save $170 if you include the combo pack or use the link to support the channel.